I thought I'd start today's video with some Langston Hughes because this poem kind of goes hand in hand with what I'm about to say. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow. And it's time for me to ruffle some feathers and crush those dreams because I've got some harsh truths about becoming an author. Let's get into it. Hello everyone, I am Aaron Dusk, indie author of 2 books, The Mark of Amuli and The Varcross Key. Go check them out if you haven't already. They're worth the read, or so I've been told anyways. All the links are in the description below. So, blame it on recent book talk breakout authors, or Andy Weir, Stephenie Meyer, or even J.K. Rowling. Somehow we've gotten it into our heads that these people are the rule and not the exception. That writing a book comes with instant fame, movie deals. It's so easy. All you have to do is just write your amazing idea, put it in book form, and the money will just pour in. Publishers will be fawning over themselves to get their hands on your brilliant manuscript, and fans will be lining down the block for an autographed copy of your book. And this is how it is for less than 1% of all published authors alive today. A lot of you that have actually been in the industry have already been slapped around with these harsh realities by firsthand experience, but writers who are just starting out may be coming into this with, dare I say, unrealistic expectations. So we live in a world where everyone wants to quit their mundane job and join the creative field as a YouTube sensation, a TikTok star, a famous author, a singer, artists, musicians, script writers, you name it. It is literally the dream of billions of people on this planet. But for most of us, a dream is all it will be. So with that said, let's start with the most obvious. Don't quit your day job. Did you know that between 500,000 to 1 million books are traditionally published each year, and over double that self-published? Did you know that of the millions of manuscripts submitted to agents every year, only 1 to 2% will actually get published? Did you also know that of those 1 to 2%, only a tiny fraction of those authors will actually make any sort of a living off of their books? Whether you're self-published or traditionally published, unless you're making at least a couple $100s a day in royalties, you're not going to make enough to live off of. This means you'll need to sell hundreds of copies a day if you're traditionally published, and around 50 or so a day if you're self-published, depending on your pricing, format, and royalty share. That shit's not going to happen unless certain stars align. For example, 1, you already have a very large social media or online presence before publishing your book. A good example of this would be David Reardon. I'm sure that you guys have seen How to Cook That with Anne Reardon. She's like one of my favorite YouTubers. But her husband is actually a published author. Well, he used to be a journalist too, but despite his career in journalism, would he have been able to land a publishing deal if his wife weren't already, or if he and his wife weren't already YouTube celebrities? Probably not. Or maybe he would have, but probably wouldn't have had the sales that he did without a large platform. Number 2, your book somehow gets noticed by a person with a very large social media or online presence. This can happen, but if you're an indie author, don't hold your breath, because it's not going to happen as easily as it would if you were a traditionally published author, and I'll tell you why. Okay, so booktubers, if you've seen a lot of booktubers, they read and review what their viewers want them to read and review. So it's usually their favorite books of their favorite authors. And usually those favorite authors are, traditionally published, well-known authors and not some obscure story on Amazon with 20 reviews. 3, your book somehow manages to go viral. A good example of this would be what happened to Andy Weir. He started posting stories for free on his blog. Developed a large following who all strongly encouraged him to put the stories up on Amazon, and the rest is history. He's now I think he's got a second movie deal now with Project Hail Mary. So will this happen to you? Will this happen to me? Most likely not. And finally, 4, and this is what is more realistic for the majority of authors out there, is you have to have a lot of books. So if you have a lot of if you have a lot of books published, chances of you being able to live off of those books are a lot higher. Numbers matter in the publishing industry. An average book is going to make shit royalties, but if you have 20 books out there making shit royalties, that adds up to a decent amount of money. That is, if your book is actually selling. Keep in mind, the more books you have, the more likely people will discover you and all of your other books. So each book ends up helping the sales of your other books in some way. Moving on to harsh truth number 2. Writing can be boring. Sitting down to write an entire novel is not going to be a non-stop adventure of excitement and fun. It's work, and it's really hard work. If you think you're just going to fart out a brilliant story and put it up on KDP, you're going to be in for a rude awakening when you actually start to write that first draft. Most people start writing a book, but they'll never finish it. I remember telling one of my friends that I'd written and published a novel, and he told me, man, he had a great idea for this story, and he wanted to start writing it. That was like a couple years ago, and the last time that I heard, he couldn't get past chapter 2. So that's pretty much the story for a lot of people. It seems so easy and so much fun to write because you get to be as whimsical and carefree as you want to. But if you want to write things that have a snowball's chance in hell at selling, some parts of it are going to be boring and tedious because it's all part of the process. It's all work. Which is a good segue to number 3. Your work ethic will determine your success as a writer, as with everything. By success, I don't mean being a bestseller. I mean successfully finishing a book. If you can't devote enough of your time to the craft, then you're likely never going to get that story from an idea to a published book. Again, it's hard work. You may have a family, a job, other hobbies, and so on, but if you're not devoting at least some of your free time to writing, you may as well just stop and just pick it back up again when you can actually devote the time to it. In this industry, you get out of it what you put in. And if you're not able to or willing to put everything you can into it, just don't expect to get a whole lot out of it. Number 4, you're going to find out you're not very good. On average, it takes around 10,000 hours to master a skill. And I'm not just talking 10,000 hours of chimping out in front of a keyboard. I'm talking 10,000 hours of learning and putting what you learn into practice. This truth is more geared toward newer writers who think they have a handle on the English language, who think their writing style is revolutionary, who were always given high praise for their writing as a child or student. My name is Aaron. I was one of those kids. I always wrote the best papers, the best essays, was loved by English teachers. And then I got to college. And then I started making my writing public. I went from feeling like I was God's gift to words to feeling like a full dumpster behind a Chinese restaurant. Once you get objective criticism, like real objective criticism from your peers, from professors, or that random asshole on the internet, you will realize very quickly that your writing actually kind of sucks. Criticism is something you will face, and it will be something that either you learn from or you let it destroy you. If you're going to be a great writer or author one day, you've got to grow some thick skin, and you better be open to learning from that criticism instead of taking it too personally. Which brings me to number 5. Not everyone's going to like your book. This kind of goes with number 4, except your book might be absolutely amazing. You've got buku 4 and 5-star reviews. Everyone just loves it. And then you get that dreaded 10-paragraph 1-star rant about how much that reader hated your story. With every word, it's like a knife through the heart. You thought you did everything right. You wrote an amazing story, but this person hated it. Why? Well, because art is subjective, and not everyone is going to like what you write. That's something you're going to have to come to terms with right away. Does it hurt? Oh, you bet it does. Did that reviewer make it personal? Very likely no. Reviews are 9 times out of 10 not personal attacks, and those rare one-time attacks are usually removed. So, remember that just because a reader might hate one of your books, that doesn't necessarily mean he or she will hate every other thing you've written. And I'll bring up this example again too. My loathing of the story Wolf Song by T.J. Klune. I absolutely hated that book. But there was something about his writing style that clicked with me. I actually enjoyed it. So I read another one of his books called In the Life of Puppets and absolutely fell in love. So no, I didn't swear off all of TJ Klune's books because I didn't like one of his books. He was a good enough writer that I wanted to try something else. Just because someone may rake your book over the coals doesn't necessarily mean they will forever blacklist you as an author. Granted, if your book was objectively bad, they likely will. But if there were good things about your writing that they enjoyed, they will likely try another book of yours. It's not always, but it's a possibility. Also, keep in mind that this kind of goes the other way too. A reader might have been a huge fan of one of your books, but hated the one you just wrote. That's going to happen too, because you're not going to please everyone. It is absolutely impossible to please everyone, and you are setting yourself up for failure if you think that you will. Number 6, there will always be people more successful than you. Let's say you write fantasy romance that rivals Sarah J. Maas in plot, writing style, and masturbatory potential. But her books sell by the truckload, while you're barely getting 1 or 2 sales a day. Well, this industry is a rich get richer industry, pretty much just like everything else. When you're just starting out, you're going to have to eat a few crumbs left behind by people who take up the most space. Building your audience at a slower pace always comes first. If you let other people's successes discourage you, then you're more likely to give up and you'll never sit on that bookstore shelf next to those well-known authors. So I guess my point is, don't let jealousy blind you. Don't let it make you bitter. Let it motivate you. Number 7, you will need to learn skills other than writing to sell your books. Writing a good book is only part of the challenge. Remember what I said earlier about people who have large social media followings? Yeah, you better get comfortable doing that. In order to get attention, you need to do things that make you stand out. And this means getting out of your comfort zone. If you want followers, you will need to create some kind of content to bring them in. If it could be YouTube, it could be, creating your own personal website with like short stories or work in progresses. It could be a TikTok channel, or it could be a bunch of Instagram posts. But you need to get comfortable with the idea of not only posting on social media, but also putting your work out there. You also need to learn how to do this in a way that you don't look like a spam bot or desperate either. If you've published, you need an eye-catching book cover. Work on miniature blurbs for Twitter that will, pull a potential reader's attention. Learn how to properly use hashtags. I'm still learning that. You also need to be consistent. Keep your books pinned in posts and replace those posts once or twice a month to reach new people. Also, I cannot state this enough because there are authors out there that I have looked up before, like indie authors, that do not have websites. You need an author website. There is no getting around this. You need some kind of author website. If you don't know how to make one, learn. It doesn't need to be fancy, but it should also be somewhat professional. That website should have information about you. It doesn't have to, you don't have to dox yourself. Just give basic information about yourself. You don't have to put a picture up there if you're using a pen name and don't want people to know who you are. But just have enough there so that readers can know who you are. And they also need to know about your books. They need to see information about your books, your social media, and so on. You should also make blog posts, so that it has a better chance of appearing in search results. The more you post, the more chances of it being seen. You don't have to make a perfectly SEO optimized website, but you should be doing what you can to maximize your chances. And this all comes down to learning how to market yourself and your books. Create a catchy brand name. For example, I changed mine to The Literate Beast. What's more catchy, simply using my pen name or attaching my pen name to something like The Literate Beast? It's strange, it's catchy, it conjures up images of what my stories might be about. And on my website, I make my brand perfectly clear right on the front page. Number 8, you're going to need to network. Have you ever heard the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know? Well, this is kind of true for a lot of things in life, not just writing. This is one of the hardest parts of being a successful author. You've all probably heard of that rich kid that got that high-paying job because his dad knew the CEO. Well, unfortunately, we don't live in a world where merit alone is rewarded. Being a social butterfly actually works to our advantage. The problem is, most of us are very much introverts. Just the idea of reaching out to get to know people who are more influential than you may make you so nervous that you want to throw up. Well, this is part of networking. It's not just about kissing Mr. Beast's ass, okay? It's about networking with people who have read your stories as well, because they may share your work with someone who is more influential, who has the connections, who may love your stories and help you get them out there. It's much easier for people to promote your writing if they actually love what you're writing. This has even happened to me, one of the most introverted introverts you will ever see introvert in your life. Just try to keep interacting with readers and engaging with people online. You'll have a much higher chance of being seen than if you kept everything all to yourself. And at the same time, number 9, writing is very lonely. Writing a novel can feel like you're out on an island all by yourself. It's a solitary endeavor, and it will require many hours just being alone, writing hundreds of thousands of words that most people will likely never read. And when you start out, no one cares. Have you ever told a family member or a friend that you're writing a novel only to have that nervous, "Oh, well, that's nice. Good luck with that"? You'll find out very quickly that no one actually gives a shit, and no one probably wants to read what you've written. Your mother or sister or brother or best friend has more important things they could be doing, like finishing the latest Elden Ring expansion. Basically, they would rather do anything else than read the first draft of your story. This is going to make you feel isolated, and that's normal. This is when you should start seeking out writing circles or writing communities. Take time away from writing to spend time with friends and family. And don't bring it up. This may seem to contradict what I said earlier about making sacrifices, but if you're not balancing enjoying life with hard work, then all you're doing is setting yourself up to burn out. And I say this as someone who's done it before, and I'm doing it right now. So yeah, Aaron should probably follow his own damn advice. We've all got to learn these harsh truths, come to terms with reality, and do the best we can with what we're given. Some people will just naturally have an advantage when they start out. The rest of us, we're gonna struggle. Mama always told me life isn't fair, and no matter how depressed it makes me, that fact is not going to change. I'm not just making this video to throw a warm, wet blanket over everything you do and make it sound like I'm speaking from some mountaintop like I know everything. In reality, I kind of needed to make this video for myself as well. I need to remind myself that most of us are going to struggle with this, and we're going to feel like shit, like nothing matters or makes a difference. But it really does. It may not seem like it at first, but when you get that reader, that random reader that sends you a message one day saying how much your writing has changed their life, or it was something that they needed in that time in their lives, that changes your perspective of everything. It no longer becomes solely about making a profit or being successful. It means, I know I'm successful. Now, how can I make this better? How can I put myself out there? If I've reached one reader, if I've reached 2 readers, if I've reached 5 or 20 or even 100 readers, then I'm successful enough to be confident enough to promote my books to become one of those bestsellers one day. And you'll start to realize that just because your books might not be bestsellers doesn't mean it's going to stay that way forever. But it will if you just give up. We may never be millionaires with movie deals, but that's not saying we'll never be able to, be full-time writers. It just takes a long time. You've got to be patient. I've got to be patient. We all need to be patient and understand that we're not the exceptions to the rules. So if you're a new writer, don't let this video discourage you, because that's not the point. The point of this video was to help you push away those unrealistic expectations so that you stay motivated. Even when you're barely making a few dollars a day or week, most of us will need to start at the bottom, and those that persevere will eventually find success. If you like this video, please remember to like and subscribe. I'll try to get these out once a week. If you want to check out my books, visit theliteratebeast.com. follow me on social media, and as always, I'll see you next time.